I'm Glenn Guest from Hog Zombies. Nowadays I'm getting a lot of videos and letters and photos from people going out and calling hogs and having a lot of success. You can see and hear the excitement in their tone over being able to call hogs. I mean, this is something that a lot of people didn't think could be done for years, and now there's more and more success stories out there from people using my sounds and Convergent Hunting Solutions, Bullet HP, Sidewinder, and the Wild Hog Pro app. And it's just phenomenal to be able to see these guys going out and having good luck doing this. Every once in a while I see guys complaining about not being able to call hogs, and I want to work through these problems with these guys and help them figure out what they're doing wrong, or if they're even doing anything wrong. I've kept notes over time and been able to compare the notes and come up with common denominators. And there are 6 major reasons why people are failing to call hogs, and they're just common sense things to me, but if you're not accustomed to calling hogs, they're not common sense to you. I'm going to try to work through these and help y'all figure out what they are. The number 1 reason is limited use. Guys go out and they try to call hogs 4 or 5 times, and if they don't call one in, they quit. Well, think about this for a minute. How many times did you go out and throw a bass lure over and over and over and not catch a fish before you decided fish wouldn't bite lures? That's my point. Try it many times. There are going to be days when they bite. There are going to be days when they don't. They have to be able to hear you for you to be able to call them. So don't just try it 2 or 3 times and give up. Try it at least once every time you get in the field, if not several times. Calling any animal, there are times when they are off and times when they are on. Don't be afraid to mix it up. Just because I have success using one sound or one sequence doesn't mean that you will on your property. The likelihood is very high if you use the methods that I suggest that you will call hogs. But if you're not having success with my method or my sounds or my sequences, just change it up. Use different sounds, different sequences until you find what works for you. Number 2 is beginning hunters. If you're a beginning hunter, you've got so much to learn about hogs. I know a lot about hogs. I know a lot about calling hogs. And the day I die, there will still be things that I don't know about hogs. There's too many variables. There's too many changes. They adapt constantly to their environment and the way that we hunt them. There's a lot to learn about them. Believe it or not, there are a lot of new hunters that are going out and setting up to call hogs and call a hog the very first time they try it. The problem is this gives you false expectations. You're not going to go out and call a hog every single time you go. I don't care who you are. There are days that I may make 5 or 10 stands in a day and try calling in different areas and try mixing up my sequences and doing something different, and I may not call a hog. It's pretty rare. We at least usually call in 1 out of 5 or 6 stands. It's amazing to me how much better I got at calling hogs once I learned the basics about hogs, where they like to stay during the day, where they like to feed, where they like to feed at night. There's just so many different things. The different watering holes, different wallows. Learn their habitat and learn their habits. There's just so much to learn about hogs that you're not going to learn by sitting and watching a feeder or bait. I'm not saying those are not good tools. I'm just saying that there's more to learn by getting out there and learning your habitat and watching these hogs from a distance in their natural environment, which leads us to problem number 3. Hunting over feeders or a bait site is likely the best way for beginning hunters to get started. Get out there and put up a feeder and put up cameras, put out bait, and watch these areas and be successful killing a hog. You can learn some from watching hogs interact around a feeder or a bait site, but it's not the same as in their totally natural environment. Each method of hunting is a tool, and you need to utilize these tools to the best of your advantage. The problem with hunting over feeders or bait, especially for mature hogs, big mature sows, big mature boars, they are on high alert when they're around those feeders. I don't generally recommend calling around a feeder because there is a heightened alert amongst the older hogs. And if they've been there, done that, been shot at under a feeder or over bait, they learn to circle downwind of those. It's not necessarily to see if a hunter is there, because they don't have that logic to reason. But there are other predators that come to those feeders that prey on piglets. There are big boars coming into those feeders occasionally. And the younger boars and the mature boars are going to circle downwind of those feeders. Number one, to check for predators. Number two, to see if there's a receptive sow there. And number three, to see if the big old boy that kicked their behind last week is there. Also, some do figure out that hunters are present, and they learn to avoid those areas. If you are limited to that type of hunting, say you've got a small piece of land, you can't move around a whole lot, and you're going to have to sit and watch a feeder or watch bait, I recommend non-aggressive calling, such as chow time, which would be feeding hogs, using social grunts. Hogs communicate constantly back and forth, especially in areas where they can't see one another. They do gentle grunts back and forth to know where the other hogs are. If they hear something and they're not sure what it is, a lot of times they'll pause and then grunt. And if they get a grunt in response, they know that it's another hog. If they don't, that puts them on high alert. So use non-aggressive sounds around bait site. Number 4, calling the hogs in the open. A lot of guys don't have time to hunt during the day, but they do have time to hunt at night. And so a lot of times they're going out and they're using thermal devices or spotlights, and they're spotting these hogs from a distance. And either they don't want to walk to them, or they just want to get hogs to come to the call. If you're calling the hogs in open areas, a lot of times they are a little uncomfortable in those big open areas. They're have a heightened sense of alert. They're wound up pretty tight, and they're paying close attention to what's going on around them. So they feel vulnerable out in open areas a lot of times. If you're using aggressive tactics, you're going to have mixed responses. So you don't want to call as loud as you can starting out, or with the most aggressive sound. A lot of times when you start calling the hogs in the open, they will rally. And by rally, this means they group up. And inside that group, you'll see constant movement. They'll just kind of move around and around in a circle. Sometimes they'll come on to you, and sometimes they'll go to cover. A lot of guys give up when they see them go to cover. That's not the time to quit. There are always 1 or 2 sows that really keep up with the piglets. That's why you'll see 15 or 20 pigs with one sow. Those obviously aren't her babies. Your guardian sows will often take the piglets to the safety of cover or brush. And sometimes they'll come onto the call after that, but sometimes they don't. But your more aggressive sows, your dominant sows that are constantly throwing their head up and looking around and listening to what's going on around them, those are usually the sows that are going to break free and come on to you. So keep calling. If they go in the brush and act like that they've been spooked, turn your volume down a little bit, keep calling. If you don't get the response you want within 3 to 5 minutes, change sounds. Go to a little more aggressive sound and see if you can pull them out. So if you're calling to the hogs in the open, use non-aggressive sounds such as mama please, piglets begging, chow time. Use those sounds at a low volume and keep working your way up until you get their attention. If they're not responding how you want them to, you volume back down, go to a sound such as the rally. It's a semi-aggressive sound. That's the sound that hogs make when they do rally around in that group. They'll constantly make that sound. Try using a low volume and working your way up until they start to respond. If they don't respond the way you want them to, you've got nothing to lose. Go ahead and try an aggressive sound. Kick into one of the piglets in distress, which is Little Squealer and Vampigra. If they're not cooperating, use those aggressive sounds. Switch to sow hysteria and see if you can bring them in. The use of ATVs, UTVs, and other motorized vehicles. In areas where hogs are hunted heavily, they figure out what those sounds mean. They associate those noises with hunters. Now, me personally, if we've got say just 1,000 acres that we're hunting on, a lot of times we'll drive to that place with our vehicle, and then we do the rest of our hunting on foot. But if you're not able to do that, you can drive from stand to stand. You need to stop 100 yards or so from where you plan to call and walk that distance, get to that stand site as quietly as possible and call. When you get through, you go back to the vehicle, you move in a little further, but always take your time. Keep that sound as low as you can and cover the ground you need to cover quickly. ATVs are awesome tools to get from one place to the other, and they help increase the number of stands you make, which increases your success rate. So they are great tools, but you have to use them wisely. Last but not least, number 6. A lot of guys are limited to hunting lease properties or hunting clubs with other hunters. Now the problem is you've got a broad range of guys there at a hunting club or a lease property a lot of times. Some guys only get to hunt on the weekends. They take it more as an opportunity to just get out and relax and have fun. They're not there to seriously hunt and really have success hunting. What you've got is guys staying out of this place all week. They come in on Friday, they're driving their loud vehicles, they're clanking and banging, they're building campfires, they got their radios blaring, they're hollering back and forth. First thing they do is unload their ATVs and UTVs and ride all over the place like it's a recreational park. They set at camp and sight in their rifles. And in some cases, all that stuff doesn't have a huge impact on hunting over feeders or bait, but it does change things when you start calling. Calling any animal changes their thought process and their mentality and puts them on a heightened sense of alert, because you're triggering something in them that makes them react in an aggressive fashion, whether it be for territorial reasons, breeding reasons, social reasons, whatever the reason that they're responding. It changes their whole thought process. If you're limited to hunting property like this, where you share that property with a lot of other hunters, instead of patterning the animals so much, you need to pattern the other hunters that share that property with you. Like I stated, a lot of them just get to go on the weekends. So schedule your time off to go during the week or during the middle of the day when they're not out there riding their ATVs and UTVs all over the place. When they're back at camp making racket, that's when you need to get out and try calling. To sum it all up, give it time. Calling is a tool, and there are many tools that we use to our advantage while hunting hogs. Don't limit yourself to one tool. Try baiting, try using feeders, try calling, try using thermal devices, do spot and stalk. There's just so many tools at our disposal that it's just crazy to limit yourself to one tool. Calling any animal is gonna be like fishing. Some days they're gonna bite, some days they're not. Just because they don't bite today doesn't mean they won't bite tomorrow. If they can't hear you, they won't come. Be sure you're hunting an area that has a good hog population. Look for tracks, look for wallows, look for crossings under fences, look for hogs in open areas during the day and at night. Another thing, just don't start out calling too loud. I'm guilty of that as well. If nothing's coming in, the obvious thought in my head is they can't hear me. Well, that's false. They can hear something as quiet as your cell phone from 100 yards away. So get out there and have fun. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear good and bad. If you're scaring them away, let's get it figured out. I'm more than willing to help you figure out why they're not coming.